Hello everyone, and today I have something very cool for you that's not GTX 260 related this time. So, me and my buddy Spicer have a bit of a kind of a thing for gigabyte overclocking hardware, and especially their SOC or Super Overclock brand. And this is not the first time that he's found something on eBay Germany that he's sent to me, because shipping it right to him into the Americas would be a little bit expensive and a little bit risky if you don't exactly know what state the thing is in. So we've taken a look at the Z170X SoC 4LN2 before, and now we are taking a look at the SoC GTX 560 Ti. And this is not just an SoC 560 Ti, those are relatively non-special. What this is apparently the very rare 1 GHz version, and it is in seemingly perfect condition considering we have the box. So if we take a look here, 1GI, so that might be referring to the VRAM, or, well, it's probably referring to the VRAM. We're gonna have to see what the default core clock is when we put it in, but like, just look at that box. It is in such a good quality. Like, it's rare that you get a thing in a quality like this if it's so old. But yeah, there's not really anything specifically saying that it's the 1 GHz version. Yeah, it's just saying that apparently it's a lot faster than a default 560 Ti. So yeah, let's open this thing up and see what we get. Oh, that's a very nice box. It's the wrong way around though. Yeah, so... and here we have it. Wow, we get like all the accessories with it. I'm not gonna try pronouncing that. My French is awful. And here's the card, upside down. And it's definitely an SoC. You can see the prod laser right there. Anything else? You get a VGA to DVI adapter and some fire hazards, and that seems to be it. So, put that back into the box. And let's take a look at the card itself. So, here's the card. Still says N560SO1GI. Not really anything specifically stating it's the 1 GB core clock version. What do we have? Same serial number as the box. Even though I think that's the actual serial number, so this is number 867. I'm not entirely sure if that's the actual serial number, but I think I saw someone take that as the actual, so this is number 867. This is, like, if this is the 1 GHz version, it is a rather low volume production, so it makes sense that this is just a 3-digit number. And yeah, like, it is a fairly standard GTX 560 SoC. We've had a 460 SoC on the channel before. That one wasn't for Spicer, that one was for FZR.ix. I already sent that to him a long time ago. And this is essentially the same. Like, we can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 V-conductors, and then probably an eighth, a seventh that's for memory. Can we see the power planes somewhat? Not really. The PCB is a bit too dusty. But yeah, it should be a 6-phase V-core VRM and a 1-phase memory. Let's just take this card apart. Like, I don't think I'm gonna break it if I take it apart. It's a 560 Ti, like... Oh, I just noticed this thing's missing. So, the card's not in the best condition, but we still get the box, and I mean, the card's probably working, I hope. Not like it still has warranty. It would just be a bummer if it's a 1 GHz version and then it's dead, because yeah, these things are really hard to get. So, that's the heatsink off. That's an interesting placing for the fan connector. Oh, this thing doesn't want to come out. Come out, I don't want to bend the PCB too much for this. Is this like glued in? Damn, okay, the entire casing came off with it. Well. Yeah, that's the heatsink. That's a pretty decent heatsink for a 560 Ti. Like, we get a... Well, the cold plate, it should have been 90 degrees rotated to actually cover the entire die. Because the outer edges are gonna have just, like, kind of bad contact, as you can see by the high amounts of thermal paste there. But we have 4 heat pipes, a decently sized fin stack. Like, this is probably fine if you consider what heatsinks like regular 560 Ti's get. Like, I have 2 other 560 Ti's and they have like half the amount of heat pipes and half the amount of fin stack, half the amount of fans, and those went into like the high 60s, I think. So yeah. We have Samsung eDie memory, which is, as far as I know, the best. Like, 1 gigabit eDie, this should be, unless this, yeah, this is a 1 gigabyte card. Yeah, so that's basically the best kind of memory that you can get on Fermi, like 400 and 500 series. 1 gigabit eDie, it doesn't clock the highest by default, that would be 1 gigabit GDie, but eDie does very well with being cold, so if you cool the memory down, it tends to get better, and it has very good voltage scaling as well, so if you overvolt the memory, it tends to get really good. 560 Ti's already do pretty high core clocks, so I don't really know a number, but on a 580 you can expect this stuff to do around 2600. For a 560 Ti, maybe 27, 2800. Yeah, and let's get the thermal paste off the die. Well, it is indeed a 560 Ti, that's a GF114400A1. And yeah, let's also take the VRM heatsink off. I don't remember if the 460 SOC actually had a VRM heatsink. A lot of the like 460 PCBs that were overclocking focused were actually not that great compared to their 560 and 560 Ti counterparts. Like, I have a 460 Hawk, and MSI reused that exact PCB for their like mid-tier 560 Ti, and the 560 Ti Hawk is significantly better. I also have one of those, but it's broken, and also already an e-power. Okay, let's not break the thermal pad here. It is rather sticky. I just want to see what MOSFETs it has. Oh boy, I broke it. Oh, this is... What? Why do you make thermal pads like that? This is what you get if you make thermal pads like that. At least the contact was good, but like... I'm just gonna try putting it on exactly as it was and hope that the thermal pads line up. Sorry, Spicer, you might have to replace these if you get the card. But yeah, this is using the slightly higher end MOSFET packaging that we've seen on the 580 and like a lot of the Asus Direct-to-2 cards. It's using a PH7030AL high side and a... What's that? I can't read the low sides very well. I actually can't read the low sides very well. The Direct-to-2 cards from Asus used a 7050AL, I think. But I just can't read the low side. It kind of looks like a 7040AL, but I'm not entirely sure. So as far as I know, the the last 2 numbers indicate the audio is on. I'm actually not sure. Maybe it was the first 2 numbers. Like something in that part number indicates the audio is on that it has. It's probably the first 2 actually, because the 3 milliohm audio on high side doesn't really make that much sense if a lot of other cards were using like a 5 or 7 milliohm high side. Forget what I said about the MOSFETs, but these are probably pretty good. Like it's the higher performance package of discrete MOSFETs that you had at the time. And with 6 phases worth of them and a pretty good VRM heatsink, even though the thermal situation is kind of bad, like you're not gonna have a problem for V-core power. Then we also actually have fuses. There's a fuse right here, and there's a few more fuses right here. The card also has shunt resistors, though these, like some 500 series cards do have shunt resistors, but they just don't do anything. If you look into GPU-Z, the card just reports 500 watts on one connector and then 0 watts on all the others. So, yeah. Also, some 500 series cards just don't have shunt resistors, like the Asus cards. So, yeah, like you don't need to unlock any power limits on this thing. It doesn't have one, even if it has shunts. Then the V-Core controller is probably an ADP4100. Yep, that's an ADP4100. That's a 6-phase controller from On Semiconductor. Pretty average controller for the time. Like the 580 SOC also uses it. Like I have one right here actually that I put some heat sinks on. Like this is a 580 SOC, as you can see, which has an even more ridiculous amount of phases. And that one's also based off an ADP4100, as you can see. So, yeah. Let me put that back. So yeah, yeah, like the PCB is not that special. Like we've seen the SOC PCB before. It is a very good PCB. Like it also has a good amount of output filtering. Also that protlizer on the back, which if it's still alive is gonna help. It also has a lot of these capacitors populated, which a lot of 560 Ti's don't bother with. And yeah, just it is gonna be a very capable card. So what I'm gonna do now is put this thing back together, put it in my test bench, and actually find out if it is the 1 gigahertz version of the card, or if it's just a regular one, because nothing on the box really states it is. So let's go and find that out. So the card's installed in the system, the driver's installed without a problem, so card works. And let's find out if this actually is the 1 gigahertz core clock version. It is. It is the 1 gigahertz core clock version. So, yes, it is the special 560 Ti SoC, the special version of a special version of a graphics card. So yeah, this is this card has potentially like a lot of headroom in it. So 1 gigahertz core clock at just slightly above 1 volt, and almost 2300 memory too. Like considering we know that this is Samsung 1 gigabit eDie, that might go really high. There might also be a lot of extra clock in the core clock, because if it does 1 gigahertz at just like slightly above 1 volt, like we can go to 1.15 volts without even editing the BIOS or modding the card. So yeah, there might be a lot of headroom in the core. Actually, let's check the ASIC quality. That's not good. Yeah, that's not very high. But it still does a gigahertz at slightly above 1 volt, so this is gonna be a case of ASIC quality doesn't matter, because like the fact is, at this voltage, it does this core clock guaranteed. So this is out of the box, and out of the box just means by default that this is not maxed out. You can put the card in a case that doesn't have good airflow, running the stock fan curve, which means the card is gonna climb into the 80s for the core temperature, and it's still gonna hold that 1 gigahertz core clock at that voltage after several years when the heat sinks are like already like slightly clogged with dust. So that means if you clean the heatsink, put new thermal paste on, make sure that the card gets enough airflow, like I've done with this fan right here, you might get a lot more out of the core clock, and of course, provided you have enough cooling, can also even increase the voltage. And since this is GTX 500, they have pretty decent voltage scaling. Not as good as Kepler, but pretty good. Definitely better than 400 series. So yeah, like this card is potentially very good. And actually, let's find out. Let's run some Firestrike on this. And yeah, see where we land. Because 1 GHz and almost 2300 memory out of the box, like, if you have one of the worse 560 Ti's, this might be around where your card might actually max out. Now, usually you get to see a little bit more than 1 GHz core clock if you like max out the voltage on the slightly worse cards, and you see like 2400, 2500 mem on like the average 560 Ti when maxed out. But like again, this is like out of the box and guaranteed to work in even like the worst PCs. So that doesn't mean that this card is worse. Like, this is one of the fastest stock 560 Ti's. I'm not actually aware if there even exists another 560 Ti that ships with a 4-digit core clock. There might be like a Galax card or something. I think they would be a brand that might make something like that. But as far as I'm aware, like, Asus doesn't have one. Their MSI Hawk exists, but I don't think that one ships at 1 GHz. So yeah, like, back in the day, this was a really, really good card, and I'm curious to see what kind of score we get here. Because again, like, some of the worse 560 Ti's get around where this thing ships at. That is a pretty good score. Now, I didn't plug the LAN cable into this one, so we can't compare. But that looks pretty good. I did a test run earlier where I did see, like, I did it on a different OS that wasn't set up for the 560 Ti, and I ended up scrapping that result because of it. And this is a much better result than I got on that OS. And yeah, so like, for my config, the average was around 3600 in total score, and the best was around 4200. And of course, like, LN2 territory, probably. So yeah, like, this is almost 4000 overall. That only like 200 points to go until you get the best. Now, when I think of it, that might not actually be LN2. That might be like water cooling territory with like high efficiency. Because my physics score isn't the best right now. As you can see, I'm not on the Apex. I'm in fact on the Z390 Gaming Pro Carbon. The CPU is only at 4.9 GHz, and the memory is down to 4100 with only a few timings tuned. Because a friend of mine who has basically this config is getting this RAM kit, and I wanted to know what the board does, because I had a feeling it doesn't do 4400, which it doesn't. So that's why this is set up right now. If I run the Apex, I can just about push 2400 physics score. So yeah, maybe that would have been enough to get 4000 total, but I kind of doubt it. If I used LOD, I probably would have. So yeah, like, if you decide to trust the numbers I just gave you, this is a really good result. Like, way above the average, and like, if you're above average on 3D Mark, like, that 3D Mark average is not like actual real world average, because most people that run Firestrike do overclock their things. They don't just run them stock. Like, of course there's people that run stock and just want to know their relative performance, but most people do overclock their things when they run 3D Mark. So the 3D Mark average is actually like quite a lot higher than the actual real world average, because the vast number of people don't overclock and don't measure their performance with 3D Mark. So being above average in 3D Mark is already a really good sign, and this is the card at stock. I kind of want to know what it does when I overclock it. I don't have too much time today. I literally have an exam tomorrow. But I'm gonna try a quick and dirty overclock on this and see if we can get close to that 4200 overall score, because this is really, really close. So I'm gonna try that. See you soon. Alright, I got a score. That's just shy. Just shy of 4200. Yeah, so I did a few tweaks. Outside of just overclocking the card, I set Windows up to be a bit more efficient. I put my CPU back on 5.3 gigahertz. RAM is still the same though. And of course I've overclocked the card. 1060 on the core. Not that much of an increase considering we just maxed out voltage. Now sometimes lower voltage can actually be good because it might just be heating up too much. But I don't think it was too much of a problem. Like, well, 61, it could be better, but like this is not super hot. And 2400 memory. I did have a few crashes at 2450 and 2500. It is Samsung E-Die, it likes to be cold. So if this card was put on water cooling, delit it, and have a high RPM fan right above the memory chips, it will probably do more. But yeah, like, it is pretty close. It is very close to the best score. Now, I didn't use the LOD tweak, because 3D Mark does not allow the LOD tweak. That's only allowed on HWBot. And I was going above the against the like best 3D Mark result, which of course doesn't have LOD. Yeah, like a decent increase. That's like 225 points thereabouts that we got extra. CPU score also like better because it's at 5.3 now. I think I'm gonna leave it here. Spicer's gonna have more time to do things with this card. As for my quick and dirty overclock, that's it for now. So yeah, it is pretty good for the score. Core could be a little better. I kind of had hopes of it just doing 1100, but well, it either needs more voltage or much better cooling or both. 1100 is really, really hard to kind of reach on a lot of 500 series cards. There's only a very few that do 1100 just like that. And to do 1100 on other cards, you like usually need to use a lot of voltage and very good cooling. And even though 560 Ti's clock a bit higher than 580s, which like you won't find a 580 that does 1060 core clock on just the stock heatsink and the stock BIOS. So it is already outclocking 580s by quite a lot. But yeah, so that's it with my quick unboxing and overview of the GTX 560 Ti SOC 1 GHz edition. And yeah, it's a cool, unique card. Like, not many people know this thing even exists. Like, it's not like Gigabyte's helping it, like that. They don't really say it's a special edition, but it is. And with that, I hope you enjoyed watching, and until next time, goodbye.